Hi and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm creating a mixed media art journal page in my handmade junk art journal, and I'm using a lot of different mediums today, including my Pan Pastels and also some pastel pencils. I'm starting the page by adhering some collage elements with gel medium. I'm using some leftover scrapbooking paper and also an old tea bag. I think the tea bag adds a nice interesting touch to the background. I'm using the big tea bags that you can fill on your own, and I believe this one was made with green tea. When I'm done with the background, I heat set everything before I come in and add a layer over the whole page with some clear gesso. The clear gesso has a different texture in comparison to the white one. It dries more rough, I would say, and it's better for me to work with pastels on top because you have something that grabs the pigments. In some areas I now go in and add a little bit of white gesso just to add some white areas to the page. I let that dry a little and then I go in with a graphite pencil and just make some scribbly marks all over the page. Before I go in with the pan pastels, I made sure that the background is 100% dry. I'm choosing some pastel colors and also the black to bring in more contrast. I haven't worked for a long time with the Pan Pastels now, but I really adore their colors and especially their soft blending, and I thought it was time to just pull them out and use them in my art journal. For a more messy or grungy effect, I use just a little bit of water and blend the black. It's just to get a more messy look on the background. Normally the soft pastels are not meant to be used with water. You won't get a watercolor effect with them. I recently did another page with the Pan Pastels, and I will link this up in the top right corner info box of the video screen. I also quickly heat set that because it's wet of the water before I keep on working with some pastel pencils. I just add some scribbly marks with different colors. When you're using pastels, you need to use any kind of fixative, and I'm always struggling which one is the best. I figured out that you can't use a spray fixative when you have permanent stamping ink on the background. So in this case I could have used the fixative, of course, but I think I used the gel medium or the transparent gesso to add a layer on top, but this lets the pastels blend on the background, which might not be the thing you want to have. If you don't want to smear your pastels on the background, you have to use a spray fixative and make sure you don't have any kind of stamping on the background, or you have already covered the stamping up with a layer of gel, for example. I think that will help from bleeding. I'm picking the transparent gesso again and just add it very quickly with just a few strokes to the background, and I think that gives me a really interesting texture because the pastels smear a little and get blurry, but the marks are still on the background. And I think with the layer of the gesso on top, you get a really effect of depth, I would say. My main image on the page, I picked a flower that was embossed onto an old book page, and then I colored the whole page with watercolors, and I cut that out to a long rectangle shape, and I want to adhere that to my page. Before I do that, I use some colors that are also on my main image and add these to my pages, and therefore I'm using just watercolors. When you add the main image to your page, it's always good to have some sort of the same colors in both, in the background and also in your main image. This puts everything together finally. If you have totally complementary colors, that could be also very interesting, but most of the time everything looks more cohesive and as a one piece when you have a few colors or just one color that is on both parts. I had the feeling that the main image is a little bit too big, so I made it smaller because I don't want that this covers up the whole background. I let this dry completely before I go in with some background stamping. I'm using stamps from the Mixed Media Marks stamp set. I have listed all the stamps I've used in the description box. And I have a nice shipping update for you. I am now able to ship to Canada again. Unfortunately, there are a lot of countries where I can't ship to at the moment because the German Post don't ship to these countries, and this includes the US and also still Australia. I hope that everything will be to normal soon. I have linked up the blog post for this project also in the description box, and there you can see some photos. Before I'm adhering my main image, I'm adding some splatters to my background. I'm using an acrylic ink spray for that, but you can use any kind of medium to create the splatters. For example, you can just use a water-soluble crayon and dilute that with water, or you can use that graphite pencil and use a wet brush and just sprinkle some pigments onto your page. I'm adding some more grungy marks to the pages with a graphite pencil. It's a water-soluble one, and I just dip the nib into water and then create some black marks all over the pages. When the background is dry again, I adhere the main image and I just use a glue stick to stick that paper down. I'm also adding some words to the page, and I just used that sentiment and decided to turn it around and stick it to the side of the flower. The sentiment is embossed in white to black cardstock. I thought I need some of that black that I have on the left side with the sentiment also on the right, and I just make some marks with a brush and some black gesso, or I think it's black acrylic paint, but that doesn't really matter. I'm going through my stash of my free printables and cut pieces out, one to adhere, one or two to the page. You will find these printables for free download on my website, and I will put a link in the description box as well. I'm often not sure which one I want to pick, so I just prepare a few and then I lay it onto the page, and most of the time I have a look through the camera onto the page and then I decide which one I want to use. I want to have a stitched look, and I'm always too lazy to pull out my sewing machine, so I just use that stitching stamp on the printable. After I've glued down the printable, I add some more words to this side, and I also used a sentiment which was embossed in white to black cardstock, and then I cut up the words and adhered them separately to the page. Here you can see the finished spread. I really like how this turned out. It was a kind of a messy process and I did a lot of different things, but that's something I really enjoy. I hope you enjoyed it too, and I hope we see us next time. Bye!